We're here at the Cambridge Hotel and Conference Center in Red Deer, Alberta. The 2019 WHL Bantam Draft is in the books. With me, Zach Hodder, Manager Player Development for the Western Hockey League. Zach, quite a day here at the 2019 WHL Bantam Draft. Plenty of excitement from the first round straight through to the end. Overall takeaways off the top.
Just right from the beginning, it was immediate chaos almost with the amount of trades that went on, and our team started in the first round and they went right to the end. I mean, we had teams drafting all the way up to the 12th round. A lot of teams use today to build the future, and other teams use today to get ready for next year, to, for Kelowna, get ready for the Memorial Cup, and for Calgary, bolster that blue line and get ready for next season where they think they have a chance to win a WHL championship.
Now, I guess let's start with the Winnipeg Ice. Obviously, they came into Thursday holding the first overall pick. Plenty of talk about that heading into the draft, but first overall wasn't the only thing that they managed to do.
No, they came in right away. They took Matt Savoy, who's the best player in this draft. In my opinion, he's the best player in his age group in Canada. When he gets to Winnipeg, he's going to be an immediate impact player. Even as a 15-year-old next season, I think he's going to be a guy that can come in and provide a spark for their offense on the games where he is able to play in the Western Hockey League. And then right after that, they followed up by making a big trade with first Saskatoon to get the third, and then Prince George to get the second. And they draft the second best forward in the draft, who's also a Manitoba guy, Connor Geekie. So in a few years, Winnipeg, those two together, when they're 18, 19 years old, is going to be absolutely terrifying for other teams.
Back to back, back to back, back to back. It's not often you see that in the WHL Bantam Draft, but we saw that today in the first round. Winnipeg, as you've already mentioned, goes first and second overall. Prince George comes in third and fourth overall before Brandon starts a really busy day taking picks at 5 and 6.
Yeah, it was, first of all, an asset management move by Saskatoon to move that pick and then move back for them, and then have Winnipeg again move that pick to Prince George to move up to second. And once Prince George got 3 and 4, they went with two teammates, two really good players, Cohen Zimmer and Keaton Dahaniak. Dahaniak, he's your number one defenseman. He's got a brother that plays in the league who's going to be able to help him as a 15 and a 16-year-old to get to know what he needs to do. And for Cohen Zimmer, he's a guy that's already ready to play. He's physically mature, he's a great skater, good hands, does everything at top speed. So for Prince George, this was a big day for them, and I think they hit on both their picks.
Now at 5 and 6, Brandon, starts off their first of 3 picks in the first round, which is a really big year for them. They make 3 selections that, by all accounts, they're really happy with.
Brandon's first 2 picks are great. Nate Danielson, the guy they took at number 5, he's been one of the best players all year. I'd say he started in the mid-range at the beginning of the season, but he's gotten better and better and better at this Alberta Cup just last weekend. He was arguably the best player there. The second player they took, Tyson Zimmer, is another guy. He's a Manitoba-born guy. That's going to be a real dry-run offense. Very fast, physical, strong, and big part of that line. But the guy, I love where they got him, is Rylan Rosemer. This guy has wheels like you wouldn't believe. Leadership. He was captain of his Alberta Cup team, as well as the captain of his team in Lethbridge. So when we're looking forward to the future with Winnipeg being in Manitoba as well as Brandon, this year's draft really started what I think could be a huge rivalry in a few years down the road when you have Savoy and Geekie in Winnipeg, and then you've got the 3 players that Brandon drafted today. It's going to be a really exciting hockey.
Heading into the morning, the Kelowna Rockets held the 5th overall selection after just narrowly missing out on the postseason last year. Now, obviously widely known that Kelowna is hosting the 2020 Memorial Cup presented by IKEA, meaning they're in win-now mode. Bruce Hamilton was looking to add some impact players to his roster, and the 5th overall pick was definitely on the table. It didn't take long before we saw that pick move, and it sort of set off a bit of a chain reaction.
Yeah, absolutely. They started with the 5th overall pick in the first round, and they ended up without a first-round pick, but 3 players that could have a really big impact on that team next year heading into the Memorial Cup. When they got here, they traded that pick, the 5th overall, to Brandon, moved back to 10th. They also picked up a player named Sean Comrie. Comrie plays in the AJHL right now. He's committed to Denver. They're going to have to do some work to get him onto the team for next year. But after they got that 10th, they then swapped it with Seattle, and they picked up 3 really good players. Dylan Hamiluk, Cole Schwiebus, and Jake Lee. All 3 players are going to be a big part of that team as they try to compete not only for the Western Hockey League playoffs, but also the Memorial Cup they're going to be hosting next year. Now, they leveraged a lot of their future, but again, they're in win now mode, and they picked up some players here today that when they start training camp, it's better to have them now than get them at the trade deadline.
Big moves made by Kelowna obviously will play a big factor in what we see through the 2019-20 WHL regular season. Folks know a little bit about Dylan Hameliuk. He's on NHL draft radars. Folks know a little bit about Jake Lee. He is also on NHL draft radar for this summer. So plenty to look forward to in Kelowna, specifically when it comes to that deal. Now, for the Calgary Hitmen, they had a fantastic 2018-19 season. They upset the Lethbridge Hurricanes in the first round of the 2019 WHL playoffs and ultimately gave the Edmonton Oil Kings a really good run in the second round, but ultimately just came up a little bit short. So the general feeling around the Calgary Hitmen was that they're very close. They needed a couple more impact players to get over that hurdle, and they were able to add a really big impact player today.
Absolutely. They got a huge swath of their roster coming back. A lot of players on that team were 17-18 this year. They're going to turn into really good players next year at 18-19. But what they needed was a number one defenseman, and they were able to get that today. They made some trades last year to get that 11th overall pick from Tri-Cities, and they swapped it to Moose Jaw, who didn't have a pick until the fourth round. They were able to get Jet Wu, second round pick of the Canucks. Good chance he's going to be playing on Team Canada at the World Juniors next year, and he's going to be arguably the number one defenseman in the Western Hockey League. You know, it's a great trade for a team that already thinks they have a shot to compete for a title.
Now for Moose Jaw, it's not like they come away empty-handed. You've mentioned they didn't have a pick till the fourth round, so they move way up into the first round. They bring in a very capable puck-moving defenseman in Vladislav Yaramenko and an up-and-coming young forward, Ryder Korzak.
Yaramenko's a power play quarterback. He's a very good Western Hockey League player. And Ryder Korzak was 16 last year in the Western Hockey League. He had a tough start to the year, wasn't producing, but by the end of the year and in the playoffs, he's on the power play. Ryder's got a ton of potential, but also the player they drafted, Denton Matichuk, at 11th overall. You know, he slipped a little bit in my mind, but he is one of the top defensemen when we talk about getting the pucks up the ice. We heard a lot of general managers today talk about, you know, fast, young, puck-moving defensemen that are mobile, and Den Matichuk fits all those. So for Moose Jaw, they lost a very good player, but they also got one in the draft, and also the two players they picked up from Calgary.
It's so easy for us to focus on the names that we heard called today, but this isn't the end of the road for players who didn't hear their name called.
Absolutely not. 25% of Western Hockey League rosters are made up of players who were never drafted in the Bantam draft. Jamie Benn, Shea Weber, Jerome McGinley, more recently Jake Bean. They're all examples of players who weren't selected but have gone on to pretty successful hockey careers. At the end of the day, as long as you're at training camp, you have the exact same chance as anybody else there. If you work hard, if you're the best player there, if you do what you need to do to develop every single day to become a better player, then you're going to have the opportunities. And if you come to a Western Hockey League camp and you're the best player on the ice, doesn't matter if you're drafted or undrafted, coaches are going to want you on that team.
Wise words from a man who has traveled that road himself. For Zach Hodder, my name's Taylor Roca. We're here in Red Deer at the 2019 WHL Bantam Draft. Thanks for tuning in.